Hey, welcome back to One Seed, One World. And we are now on the next episode of the greenhouse build with putting up the walls. So I've already got this first wall put up. I did this on Saturday and I did not video this part because we were having a new roof put on our house and it was pretty loud out here with them. Rooster crowing again. But it was pretty loud out here with them, scraping off the old roof and putting all the new shingles down and nail guns and all that kind of stuff going on. So I didn't get any videoing done. Plus this gave me some practice to make sure that what I was doing was going to work before I showed you what I was doing. So I'm going to show you the next step though with putting up the other side wall, and then we will go from there. So let me show you what I'm doing. So I already have my boards cut to the size that I need. The height on this wall that is atop the pony wall is the studs are 70.5 inches long. Plus I gave myself an extra 1/8 of an inch on top of that. These damn roosters. I gave myself an extra 1/8 of an inch just to make sure I had a little bit of play. I can shim windows in as I need, and I just wanted to make sure that they would fit in okay. So the total length is 70.5 inches plus 1/8, whatever that is. And then there's a top and a bottom board. They are spaced 27.5 inches apart. And that is due to the size of the windows that will go along both the side walls. Let me show you the windows now. Okay, so this is one of the old barn windows, and they still need a lot of sanding and cleanup. Also, what I'm going to have to do is trim all these windows because they are all different sizes. Some are 27 and 7/8, some are, there's a couple that are about almost 28. I think there is one that's 28 inches wide. Most of them are just a 1/8 or 2 or 3, maybe up to 3/8 inch over 27.5. So I decided just to trim them all to be 27.5 inches wide. And then 34.5 inches tall. And again, with the height, they do vary quite a bit. So I'm hoping that trimming them to fit a 34.5 by 27.5 inch size, that the glass doesn't break. Because when we originally got these, I was thinking that they, one, were all 2 feet by 3 feet, with the exception of a couple of oddball ones that we got, but they're not. They all vary a little bit. And I also thought that they were all one single pane that then had these, I thought that these cross pieces in here were just stuck in there for design, but they're not. Every single one of these is a separate pane in the majority of the windows. So when we start sanding these and taking out all the old putty and stuff that's fallen out, the panes are almost dropping out. So we're going to have to resand all these. Be careful not to break any of the glass, and then re-caulk all the edges to hold them in. So it's going to be a total of 27 windows, because after doing the measurements, instead of doing 14 down each side, which would have been a bottom row of 7 and then a top row of 7, we only had enough that were the same size to do a bottom row of 6 and a top row of 6. So there'll be 12 windows down each side on the long sides. And the other thing that I found was that we had an odd number of these that have these cross pieces of wood in them. And there's one that was kind of falling apart. So we have two others that are about the same size of these that do not have any of the cross wood pieces, that they're just one big single glass of pane. So we're going to use two of those opposite of each other, one on each wall, so they kind of match up, and just kind of put those down in the corners where they won't be as noticeable because they won't match all the other windows exactly. But you know, this is a very rustic build, so I think it's going to be okay. Then in the front, we have these smaller windows, and I'm going to do one of these on each side of the door, and then we'll do another big single glass pane in the middle in the back is what my plan is. And then around those windows on the front and back will be just the corrugated plastic, and then the corrugated plastic clear roof as well. And then also, we already know that we have a couple of panes in here that are cracked, and Mitzi does stained glass. Now, she hasn't done stained glass in about a decade, but she still has all the tools, and she just ordered some new glass. So there'll be some random stained glass pieces that she's going to make to fit in some of these windows that we hope will come out and look cool and give it a little bit more character. So that's the deal with the windows. Now let me show you how I'm lining them up on the boards and get this wall together. Okay, so this is my top and my bottom board, and the studs will run up and down in between these. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to mark where all of my boards are going to be, or where all my studs are going to run in between these. So at the end on this side here, I know that I'm going to have two boards right together. It's just the way that it worked out. This is not your standard wall build, but it's the way it's going to work for this one. So if you don't know, when you get lumber, when you buy 2x4s, they're not actually 2 inches by 4 inches. They're actually 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So you have to take that into account when you're making your measurements. So because I have two boards or two studs right at the beginning that will be right together, that's 3 inches because they're each 1.5 inches thick. So from that line down on that end, so I'm starting from the 3-inch mark from the end. I'm going to come out because I need 27.5 inches. So 27.5 from the 3-inch mark would be 30.5 inches. So I'm just going to make a mark here on this board at 30.5. And just for the sake of showing you how this is going to work, so I've got my mark here at 30.5 inches. Take my speed square, draw a line across both boards. And then that board is going to be 1.5 inches thick. So that's going to put me at 31.5. Or I'm sorry, 30.5. That's going to put me at 32 inches. Already running out of pencil again. So I make my mark there. Draw my line across, and then I just put some X's in here because that's how I know where my stud's going to go. So again, this is the top board, or bottom and top board. And you see there, this is kind of how the stud will go. This is just a little scrap piece that I'm showing you with, but then that will fit right in there. And then I'll have from here to that to the end is the 27.5 inches that I need to fit my first window on this side. And then I'm going to continue to measure this down all the way down at 27.5 inches apart from the far end of the stud here to make all my other marks. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that, transfer my lines between both the top and bottom board until I get all 6 sections marked out. And then I can start screwing the studs in. So again, I hope I'm explaining this clear enough if you're a newbie on how this works. You know, we all learn as we go, so we're at different levels of understanding and skill sets when it comes to building a wall. So hopefully this will give you some ideas of how it works. One thing you may have noticed too is that I have these clamps on here, and that's because these boards have been sitting out for, I guess, almost 2 weeks now, and they've started to get a little bit of bow to them. So I clamped them together on either end to make sure that, one, they didn't move, and also that they were pulled tight together so that when I drew my lines across and was transferring the lines, that they would match up, because I don't want it to be off. You know, if I had something that was bowed out, or while I was drawing the lines, if it moved a little bit and then you're drawing one here and then it was off, when you tried to put your studs in and line them up, everything would be screwy and out of plumb and out of level. So these, I've got one on either end. These clamps hold them together to make sure that I'm keeping everything the way it should be in place. So now I've got all my lines marked. Now we can go ahead and put the studs in. Okay, so I've got my top and bottom board lined up here, just kind of laying across. And to help me get started, because working by yourself, it's hard to hold your studs in place in the middle of the lines. I just have it laying across the pony board here to get this first one in. I'm not starting at the very ends, I'm starting one in, and then I'll add the end one later as I work my way down the line. So we're going to get these put in right in between the marks that I made, and get this going. Okay, now that we've got all of the studs in, it's time to stand this bad boy up. So this would be a lot easier if you had two people working together, but I'm going to try and manage this myself. I got the other one up by myself, so let's see what happens. Okay, so it's temporarily up, and I've got the 2 braces in to hold it, one on either side. Now I want to make sure that everything is squared up to the other side before I build the back wall. But basically, the back wall and this front piece here, I already have this other front piece on over here, but this front piece here will be the same exact process, with just cutting the studs to the 70.5 inches plus 1/8, and then cutting them to length, and then tying them all together. The one difference with the back wall is that those studs, instead of being the 27.5 inches apart, it will be 24 inches on center, because the panels that I got, the corrugated clear plastic panels, are like 2.17 feet, whatever that is, just a little over 2 feet wide. So I'm going to do all the studs on the back wall at 24 inches on center, and then once that wall is up in place and secure, then I'll cut out a section in the middle of it to frame out the window that's going to go in the center. So right now I'm just going to check some measurements to make sure that this wall all comes out kosher, so that everything's even, because when you are building your walls, you want everything not only to be the same height, of course, but you also want it the same distance apart, and you want it square, so that when you are putting up your rafters, especially when you're doing a gabled roof, peaked roof, that it's the same on both sides. So that's what I want to check right now to make sure this all lines up. And then once I'm okay with where everything is, then I'll probably add a couple extra screws to hold it in, and start working on the back wall. So all the walls are up now, and just a little while ago I finished framing out this door. I am going to have to make some adjustments to it, because when I put the post in, I made them a little too wide for the door that I have. So even though I've got the door frame in, I'm going to have to add another stud in there to bring it out farther to close in the gaps and shim it up. But you know, I'm figuring this out as I go along, and I don't always get everything right. The other thing that I would have done differently is I would have made the front wall all one piece, instead of the way that I did it was doing a short wall on either side of the door and then just kind of built a door frame in the center of it. Whereas really I should have just made that all one wall and left the opening for the door, and that would have tied it together better. But oh well, if I build another building in the future, then I'll know to do it better next time. The last step that we have to do is put on the top plate. Top plate is just another row of 2x4s that run around the whole top, and they overlap at the corners. And I'll show you what I mean by overlap. I'll show you that. But it ties it all together and makes it stronger, so then we can start on the roof next after getting the top plate on. Okay, so top plate. Like I said, it's just a 2x4 up here on the top of all the walls, and you run it all the way around. But what you want to do is at your corner, where you have one corner going this way, and this is the front side of the greenhouse, and then the side wall comes down this way. Here we've got where the short wall comes out, or I should say the front wall comes out all the way to the very end. And then the side wall starts here. So this is where your boards intersect here. This board, and this is a crappy board they gave me, but I'm going to use it anyway. You're going to screw this top plate down over top of where these two meet. And so that will tie the front to the back. And then you just do that all the way around. And that's kind of the way this works. So I'm going to go ahead and get that done before it rains. Okay, so all the walls are up, top plates are on. Most of the door frame is done, although like I said, I gotta make some adjustments, but walls are up. Next step, next challenge is for me to figure out how to do the roof. I've already got my ridge beam out here ready for tomorrow, so we'll see what happens with that. I know that there are probably professional builders that might come across this video and shake their head at all of the things I'm doing wrong. Like, for example, that I'm using screws instead of nails because nails are stronger, have stronger shear strength than screws do. But I prefer using the screws over nails. And you know, it's just a greenhouse in the garden. So, and there's plenty of other things that I'm sure I'm doing incorrectly that a professional would say mean things to me about. But I'm happy with the way that it's gone so far, and I think that's all that matters. As long as that it's sturdy and stands the test of time, then I guess I did okay. But that's yet to be seen. But walls are in. No, just kidding. So, roof tomorrow. So thanks for checking out this long video for doing the walls, and stay tuned for the next episode in the build for the greenhouse with old recycled windows. So please subscribe to our channel and check out our other content, and we hope to see you again soon. Hope that you are having a fantastic day. Namaste.